Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings versus Carolina Panthers Week 14 matchup based on analytics. Each week, I collect all of the current 2017 NFL team data in order to analyze and project potential NFL performance. And since it's a weekly collection, there's always going to be some variation between different data points. However, there's always going to be little nuggets of truth that could become bigger nuggets of truth as the season continues. So stick around as I analyze each week's matchups based on analytics. And if you're new to the channel, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So, starting with this game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Kansas City Chiefs, or Carolina Panthers, excuse me. When you look at the basic NFL stat comparison data, and NFL stat basic comparison data essentially deals with how the offense is doing, how the defense is doing, and of course how the special teams is doing from a macro level. And when you look at all this information, it's actually a pretty tight game between both these teams, with the Carolina Panthers having a very, very, very slight edge. So let's get into some reasons why. So first off, the big thing to kind of point out is that the Vikings do have a much better offense, which we'll get into when it comes to final judgments about this game. But offensively speaking, the Vikings have the better turnover ratio, so they don't turn the football over as much as the Panthers. They don't allow as many sacks as the Panthers in terms of their sack percentage, and they also have a much higher offensive score percentage, so they basically score more points on offense than the Panthers do. But defensively, the Panthers have some advantages that kind of make them the better defense. The Panthers don't allow as many points per drive compared to the Vikings. The sack percentage is also much higher with the Panthers, whereas turnovers is more so with the Vikings. So defensively speaking, the Panthers essentially have a better defense. And a big reason why they're kind of favored in this game is because they have a better balance between their offense and defense. But I would say that the Vikings do look a little bit better overall just because of how good their offense is. So that's just something to kind of think about as we dive into some other areas, like special teams. When you look at punt return yardage, the Vikings are favored there. Kick return yardage, the Vikings are also favored. Defensive punt return yardage and defensive kick return yardage is more so with the Panthers. Field goal percentage, which is by far one of the most important metrics when it comes to special teams, pretty much favors the Panthers, on top of extra point percentage and punting average that also favors the Panthers. So the special teams does favor the Panthers in this respect. The defense favors the Panthers, and then offensively the Vikings are heavily favored. So I would say this is going to be a very interesting game to kind of figure out and predict, because normally I do like to go with offensive teams because the better offense typically wins the game more so than the defense. But again, we'll revisit this when we get to this point. But again, the overall data, like when you take all the numbers and you combine it into one number, that favors the Panthers, but very, very slightly. So again, we're going to revisit this in terms of final judgments at the end. But now let's get to some micro matchups. So micro matchups, of course, are things that deal with down and distance data, various downs and distances in terms of success. And when you look at the Carolina Panthers offense versus the Vikings defense when it comes to completion percentage, the Vikings have the advantage on second and third down, which have been the main downs and distances where the Vikings have had the most success on defense. So they've been a very good defense when it comes to this throughout most of the season, especially third down, which is kind of a hallmark of some of their success. And then, of course, when you look at the Vikings offense versus the Panthers defense, as you can see, the Panthers pretty much dominate in terms of completion percentage, in terms of first, second, and third down. Much more efficient offense, more opportunities for playmakers to make positive plays, and as a result, their offense has been pretty dang positive because of that. And then, of course, you get to rushing down. So this is the Panthers offense versus the Vikings defense when it comes to the ability to convert first downs with the run. This has nothing to do with yardage. This has nothing to do with explosive plays. This purely has to do with the ability to get first downs with the run in various downs and distances. And in this particular area, the Panthers are favored on 2nd and 3rd down. So I think the Panthers will have some success rushing against this Vikings offense. But there's a lot of indicators here that could show it could actually be a little bit more even as well. So that's just one thing to kind of consider in this game, is that the Panthers might have success rushing the football in certain situations, or they might have a very tough kind of slug it out kind of game. And then, of course, when you get to the Vikings offense versus the Panthers defense when it comes to rushing downs, and in this area, the Panthers are favored on 2nd and 3rd down. So, again, those are the big kind of downs and distances. So I think the Panthers will have success kind of stopping the run on those downs because of those certain issues. And then, of course, we get to passing down. So this is the Panthers passing offense versus Vikings passing defense. In this area, the Vikings are favored on 1st and 3rd down. So I do think the Vikings, who have been very, very good on 3rd down, I mean, that's the money down for them. They're not very good on 1st down. They're not that amazing on 2nd down, but they've been killing it on 3rd down. So you can kind of say what you will about that, at least in terms of how their defense kind of functions. Then, of course, you get to the Vikings offense versus the Panthers defense. In this particular area, the Vikings are favored on 2nd and 3rd down. So, again, Vikings, I think, will have success passing the football in those situations. Then we get to sack rate between the Panthers offense and the Vikings defense, where, honestly, it's kind of even in this particular aspect. You know, you look at 2nd down, which I think is probably the biggest safe haven down that there could be. Because the Vikings have the worst 2nd down sack rate in the NFL. But when you look at 3rd down, pretty competitive. And then, of course, 1st down more so favors the Vikings. So this is definitely going to be another sort of matchup. This is going to be interesting to see how this turns out because of those aspects. Then, of course, you get to sack rate for the Vikings offense versus the Panthers defense, where the Panthers are favored on 2nd and 3rd down in this respect, but very slightly. So definitely kind of a game where it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. Then we get to interception ratio between the Panthers offense and the Vikings defense, where the Panthers are favored on 1st and 3rd down. And then finally, we get to the Vikings offense versus the Panthers defense when it comes to interception ratio. And as you can see, the Vikings are pretty heavily favored in all 1st down, 2nd down, and 3rd down. I really doubt there'll be that many picks or interceptions coming their way in this game. But again, we'll see. So overall thoughts about this game, I think honestly, I'm going to go Vikings here. I think that because of the offensive advantages that the Vikings have, and because of some of the miscommunications and issues that the Panthers have, like on the other side of the football, I think that this is going to be a game where the Vikings are going to have a lot of success on offense, and I think their defense will have a little bit more success against the offense of the Panthers than what the data suggests, if that makes any sense. But that's just my general feelings about the game. Again, the data does favor the Panthers, but since it's so close, I mean, we're talking like a 3-point difference, if my references kind of reminds me. So that's not a big difference. And again, whenever it's close like that, I typically like to go with offensive teams versus defensive teams. Because offensive teams typically win more football games than defensive teams, by a pretty decent amount. So that's kind of how I feel about this game. I think it's a Vikings victory. And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.